Welcome to Casa Fuzetta, the House of Stories, with me, Tara.
And me, Kate.
I can't quite believe it, but we have come to the end of our very first series.
Ooh. If you've been with us along the journey, the biggest thank you to you.
And if you're joining us for the first time, let us quickly set the scene.
In early 2024, Condé Nast Traveller named Casa Fuzetta one of the best yoga retreats in the world.
However, the journey to this extraordinary accolade was anything but obvious and involved plenty of hard work, but also stories of pure magic. In fact, there have been so many stories since my first trip to Portugal in the autumn of 2013 that I needed help in sharing them. And my dear friend Kate kindly agreed.
Over the course of the last 7 or 8 episodes, we've shared some of the crazy stories involved in Tara and her husband Jonathan's journey as they opened their hearts to Portugal and the call of the derelict buildings being brought back to life. And we met some of the extraordinary community of like-minded creatives and adventurers that they met along the way.
In the last 2 episodes, including this one, I fly solo to interview wonderful guests who joined us for our February workation time. In the previous episode, German interior designer Nora Bonn shares how her love of visuals and detail called her to Casa Fuzetta on more than one occasion. And in this episode, I invite fellow workation guest Haruka Aoki to share insights on adjusting to life in Lisbon, embracing the slow, and finding the golden threads of connection between like-minded souls. Haruka, you are one of our February workation guests at Casa Fuzetta. And we have had a conversation, I think, that started 5 years ago, maybe 4, slightly pre-COVID, I want to say.
Yeah, so it was right before COVID.
And I can't remember who introduced us or why or how it happened, but you tell your version of what you think and how the conversation started and how come you're with us in Olhão in Portugal. I'm just fascinated to know a little bit more about you and where you come from and the journey that you've been on.
It has been a journey. It has really been a journey for sure. And first of all, my name is Haruka Aoki, and now I am based in Lisbon, Portugal, which I've wanted to say for so many years, and maybe even for lifetimes. I really wanted to say that. And to actually be here with you, Tara, in this room at Casa Fuzetta, it means so much to me. And at the very beginning, I found out about Casa Fuzetta because I was thinking, how can I get myself to Portugal from New York City? I had a full-time job at the time. The rent, as always, was always too damn high. So I really felt stuck, and it took me a long time to actually find a way to come here. But I wanted to contact people who had really beautiful businesses, especially artist residencies or bed and breakfasts, because at that time I thought, maybe I could get into that. Perhaps that's my way to make it into Portugal through a business. And this was also my business brain taking over and my way of looking at things on paper. Like on paper, this is a great idea. Literally checking each box. And one of the visa types at the time was a business visa. Okay. So I thought, maybe that's for me. And I ended up looking online at just beautiful artist residencies, retreats, places like this. And I reached out to those people. And I'm still friends and keep in touch with some of those people. And now I have this wonderful network of mostly women, older women who have created gorgeous, really like from the soul type of retreats and places where people can rest, recharge, and also perhaps accept and change, be challenged a little bit. And so
we were doing a little bit of that yesterday.
Yes. Yeah.
But in a supportive environment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You get so much confidence, I think, when you can see that someone else has stepped out of their comfort zone and done something and it's worked, because of course we're all crippled by fear so much of the time.
Definitely.
And we're all our own worst enemies, and it's what's in our head. But yeah, no, that's gorgeous. And so in going back to New York, maybe, were you an illustrator? Because you talk sometimes about that there's a sort of corporate world, but were you doing illustrations in a corporate environment, or was the illustrations on a sort of side hustle that's become the main purpose?
So I think, like a lot of people in the world, I really just wanted stability in my life. And I thought in order to get that, I had to have a full-time job. And really, I wasn't thinking so much for myself. I was thinking around, just looking around at what other people in university were doing, what are the steps, what's the right thing to do. And so I did go down that path, and I am glad I did that. But every single time I had a choice, whether it was for university, for graduate school, for my first job, my second job, every time I chose stability. And I still love that part of myself, and I think she's very smart, she is very grounded. And at the same time, I realized there are so many signs that are pointing me to this other direction where it seems way more scary, but also free. So free. And I'm still every day, even just in the day, in the week, even in the hour, I do still struggle with that wonderful corporate, get this stuff together, check all the boxes. She's still there inside my brain. And
it's a skill, but it's about that. It's always about balance.
Yes,
it's about balance. Yeah. Things to draw from, and then things to recognize, not to get fixated on. And therefore you just go, okay, that's a really useful skill for me. Let's use it, but we contain it so that it doesn't restrict then the freedoms over here. And I think, certainly for my case, again, here, that's something that my journey, and I've spoken a bit on other sort of podcast episodes, is I came from a sort of originally a corporate sort of lawyer, very intellectual, all head, and then into business, which was still pretty head. And it was like, I was even teased by Jamie and the crew, no, you can't, you're not allowed to play with the creatives. You're not a creative person, you're the commercial brains. You make the deals, you do that. You're not allowed to play in the sandbox. And so I was always told, you're not a creative person. And then you come here, and suddenly you could get literally grounded, and you move into your heart. And if you suddenly, you're led by your heart, but still with your head, you draw down your head skills, then you can start to create this balance, which I think hopefully creates a little bit, it keeps its magic.
Oh yeah. And truly, like every room I step in here, every dish that comes out, I see that freedom that you have unleashed. Because you are such an artistic person. I have seen any flower arrangement you've made, I'm just like, I almost get teary-eyed because there's so much beauty and care that goes into that moment and thought. It makes me sad that you too have been decided.
You're the intellectual one, so you go and do lawyer. I mean, to be honest, it was my choice. I didn't know, I had no idea what the options might even be. So I figured, I'll do that because it will be a good stepping stone, and then later I'll figure out the rest. So yes, I think we have to accept the lessons that we've learned along the journey, but now have the sort of a little bit more clarity to be able to see actually there's another world, and it's still can be super scary.
Yes.
But I do think, and I do see my kids, the next generations, the world that we had, which was super structured, and it's like you're in one career for your lifetime, adult lifetime. That's a thing of the past. That's gone already, and a lot of uncertainty comes with it. But if you can hold some of that confidence, new things, they blossom and they come to you. So you had this vision that you wanted to come to Portugal. And you stuck with it. And I remember you would send these little newsletters and notes to say, I'm holding the vision. And I remember reading them all and just thinking, oh, I can feel it. I can feel you write beautifully. And it was just like, I can feel the goal. I always knew you would make it. Absolutely. And then suddenly it's, oh, you're here. Don't come. Oh, lovely. Perfect.
Yes. Yeah. And I also wanted to add that while I was working these jobs, going to graduate school for design, by the way, so I was too scared to go for art. For so long, I had really boxed myself in and thought I was doing the right thing. And when I first left that job, I could only draw in black and white.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And I could only do single panel comics. And it was, at the time, that was all I could do. But a really good healer friend of mine told me, hey, what if you try this every day? Just try it every day and maybe share it. And she was very connected with the universe, so I trusted her. And I did that for 5 or 6 months straight. I just kept at it. And during that time, I also was able to get a 5-month rest. It was a break from the corporate world, but I read the fine print, as one does. When you're in just a desperate survival situation, it was for me. And I was able to still get that financial stability from my work while being able to take group therapy classes.
So was that, without intruding too much, was that, if you're happy to talk about it, was that because you burnt out and you said that you went to your employers and just said, look, you burnt me out, I need to have some time out?
Yeah, I think I just a very accepting and kind person. Some of the kind of other side of that is sometimes we
take on
so much, like a sponge, and we can't do our sponge duties really anymore. And the sign from the universe came in the form of a very difficult manager. Yes, and that I tried so hard to try to work with this person, get other people's help, but it really just was not working. And often I could figure out what are some solutions to this, let me try it out. And I did try at that job for 3 years, but it really...
But that again, the universe is like going...
They were like, we tried to tell you every single time you do this, Haruka. This is another time, and you may not have more coming from us anymore. You have to listen to us.
So is that when the cosmic, is it your Instagram is the cosmic Haruka? Is that where that all started?
From? Definitely. That's where it came from. And as a child, I used to be very connected with various messages, and I like to call them revelations because it really feels like your third eye is wedged open, whether you like it or not.
Yes, and once you've seen it, you can't unsee it.
You can't unsee it. Yeah. So I realized that I have ignored this third eye and these messages for a long time, and it's about time I wake up.
And how was your partner? Because you haven't come on your own. How was he about adjusting to this, to sharing this vision? Did he jump in straight away, or did you have to persuade him?
So I was the one that jumped in to his idea.
Oh, okay.
And it was almost 20 years ago now that he first came to Portugal.
Okay.
And he fell in love, like many of us do. And he was like, wow, I have to come back here in some way. I really love it here. And so it was his idea to perhaps one day come here. And it felt right to do it at this time. And even though it felt like we were a little delayed, it feels this is the right time.
Yeah. And is he an artist as well?
So he is an art curator.
Oh, yes, you mentioned. So, and where is he? And he's working for a gallery or a museum in Lisbon.
So the funny thing is, he is now working at where I used to work. And thankfully, the corporations are big enough that there are many different kinds of people, different kinds of managers and teams. So he is thankfully in good hands.
Excellent. You moved to Lisbon 6 months ago? No?
It was almost a year ago.
Okay. And how has that manifested itself in terms of reality versus expectation?
Definitely at the beginning, because we didn't know many people here in Portugal and also Lisbon, it was hard. And I think I do, from the past, have some difficulties with language and learning new language.
And Portuguese is not easy.
Yeah. However, I slowly realized, it's actually about human connection.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, I know the right tense for this, for this word.
Yes, it's what you give out, and kindness and expression and looking people in the eye, really simple things like we teach our kids, but it's so important. It's so important. People can feel it. They also say, what is it, that 90% of our communication is actually non-verbal anyway. So language doesn't have to be too much of a barrier. And everybody in Portugal speaks embarrassingly good English anyway.
Embarrassingly good, yeah. So I think the language barrier and not knowing too many people, that was difficult. And also we weren't able to physically come to the house that we had rented, just because at that time the demand for the rentals was so high.
Yeah, especially in Lisbon. Yeah.
So we were just like, get anything that we can.
And then we'll adapt.
Yes, and we'll adapt. And so much of it, again, came through like the survival. Let's just do it. What's important is that we get into Portugal.
Yeah.
And we have a roof above our head. And slowly we realized, I think there's insulation in these walls.
Yeah, that's Portugal. Welcome to Portugal.
Yes, welcome to Portugal. And just many little things like that. And again, just my partner and I being kind, open-minded people, we were like, we can live with this, we can live with this. But then so much of that just continuing of we can live with this. So we realized, okay, it's time to look for a new place. And we just realized how important the home is for us. Yeah. It truly is a holy and sacred place.
Yeah.
You can rest, be yourself, make
and
from
be
your
warm
soul.
and
Be warm
and yes.
Yeah.
Which in Portuguese buildings you can't always take for granted. Yeah.
And we were in the basement floor. So we really
you really felt you feel it in your bones.
Yeah. When you said warm, I was like, exactly. We did not see the sky for many months.
Oh no.
Yeah.
And what about the local community? Because I don't spend huge amounts of time in Lisbon, but I know that huge numbers of people, whether it's from the US or from other parts of the world, have been coming to Lisbon because they've got the various visa regimes, but also they've been very deliberately trying to attract a whole artistic community, a whole digital and tech community, which the world seems to have heard, and arguably, possibly, is it too much? Has the pendulum swung too far the other way? But I just wonder, have you found this vibrant community of international artists at all? Or will you just keep more to yourselves, or wondering what that's
I definitely am more of like a homebody, but I do connect with people who also have similar energies Yes, I have found little gems of people and little gems of spots like cafes, libraries, and the connection, therefore, for me, is often very deep. It is not at all like just circular. Yeah, it's very deep, and I have met actually a lot of folks from other countries who have made Portugal a refuge. And for me, that has been a big learning that whether it's places like Ukraine, Russia, that truly this country, this city, Lisbon, is they can rest here.
Interesting, yeah.
And although it is always heartbreaking that they may not be able to return to their countries, the fact that we can be there together at this time.
It feels like a safe haven.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
truly hope continues because it's a very special, healing land.
I think so.
It feels like it should be good in terms of, I think refuge is a safe space. It's like we try and create a safe space in Casa Fuzetta, but I think to your point, Portugal feels like a place where it's obviously historically had a very troubled history, but I think in a way it feels like maybe karmically it's coming full circle to where have we learned from the past and perhaps some of the bad things that we've done through our history to now actually be able to welcome people back and to offer them that refuge. I'm going to suggest we take a little break.
Yes.
And we'll come back in a moment. Welcome back. I'm going to talk a little bit more about your experience with the community in Lisbon and the Portuguese people and what your experience is as you're living it now. Completely, presumably you've pretty much cut off all practical ties now with the US and now you're fully immersed in Portuguese life.
Yes, it has been really wonderful. I've been less learning, it's more unlearning and shedding some of the behaviors and beliefs that I've slept on to my life. So I'm really learning to slow down. And when someone says, okay, I'll see you at 5 p.m., then it's like maybe it's 5:20, maybe 5:30, and just remembering that time just doesn't move forward linearly.
It's not the same way here. Yeah.
So at first it was a bit difficult, but now I'm trying to that way of thinking and that relaxed way of being into my work as well. So I have so much to thank Portugal and the Portuguese people who have made this culture, because I think it really gets me back to the human basics of, sure, eating, living, surviving. However, it's more about enjoying each step.
The joy, not survival, but
not survival.
thriving. There's sort of that whole notion that we should be focusing on thriving, not just surviving.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what life is for.
Exactly. Yeah. So much of the culture here is, well, things don't have to happen right now. Tell me more about yourself, or let's go for a coffee, and don't look at our phones all the time. So that has been really honoring my true way of being. And I really love that in terms of my local community, relaxing my way into it and getting to know some of the people who work at the local cafe, some really wonderful artists, talking to them like this about, why did you choose Portugal? And everyone has a different answer, but there's always a piece of connection where it's, I really wanted to slow down or really honor myself.
It's kind of these golden, I got this memory from a conversation I had a few weeks ago about golden threads and how these little golden threads connect us and that we're tapping into. And then that's how this community of people are like, oh, I've got my finger on the thread, I can feel it, I can feel it, and then I can feel the other people there as well.
And it feels so good when you find those people.
Even if it's been a long time, when you find the other people on the thread, you can see them, doesn't matter how many years go by, somehow or other you've got this connection.
Yes.
And it just feels really lovely.
It does.
Very special. Again, it's once you feel it, you can't unfeel it or unsee it. Oh, we want more people in the world who can do that, which I suppose in part again is the reason for doing the podcast, so that you can go, if you're feeling that you're, whether you're in New York or Paris or London or Berlin, and going, is this it? I keep feeling that there's more. Yes, there is. There is. Come and join us. Tap into the stories. Tap into this network of golden thread. Yeah. Find your tribe. And again, that they give you this energy and this confidence to go, oh, I'm not completely barking mad. To move away from these old paradigms and behaviours and expectations, and it's, that's how it has been done. Weirdly, of course, we think that this is how, sometimes, whether it's school or university, all of these things, this is how it's been done forever. And actually, it's not how it's been done forever. It's actually only how it's been done for maybe 150 years at a push. So when you think about the millennia of human existence, why are we pigeonholing ourselves into the last 150 years of...
it's very limiting.
Very limiting. Very limiting.
And I think right now there's such a beautiful unraveling that's happening, not just in the individual state, but also in the collective, just the masses. And it's a wonderful thing to witness, where people are really looking at the mirror and seeing themselves and questioning, what? Maybe this isn't for me, or maybe I can try that thing I wanted to do for a long time. And that makes me so happy, because people in a way are remembering their child self and that feeling of curiosity and fun. And I would want that for everyone. I think
absolutely.
It's such a beautiful place to be. And I think I don't know if it's supposed to be what humans, how they should be, but I love to see that and be in that state.
Having had the vision to come from New York to Portugal, do you have a vision for how life in Portugal might evolve, or how you want it to,
I think I do now have a pretty specific intention, and I'm very clear now on what I need to be doing, at least for the rest of my life. It's very clear now. And initially I thought, editorial illustration, I want to see myself doing that. But really I realized that these thought patterns were continuing, where I was boxing myself in again and again. And even within art, I was doing this. Once I noticed that, it's time to open my horizons again. And I basically would like to really connect on a big community level. So have offerings that are not just for the day, like in newspapers or for this one small project, but something that can really help people from the heart. And so I'm thinking about creating workshops, and it does not really have to do with illustration. I think I will, of course, continue that for fun and just create that kind of beauty, continue that, but then also try to reach more people by connecting to their souls. And the way I want to do this is, first of all, in Japan, I have been hearing for multiple years the idea of the wind era, and how we have switched from earth grounded, structured era to wind just these past couple of years. And I really feel that. And knowing
blowing through.
Yes, uncertainty is the norm. And so if that is the case, and we know that now, I would really like to help people be in that era and still find comfort, still find themselves, still find their purpose. And I think right now is a very difficult time because people still want to be grounded and rooted. Yet it gets harder and harder the more you try to ground.
And they have to be flexible because otherwise you break.
Yes. Yeah. And I have also broken some branches myself, and it hurts. And so if I can be a guide through some live workshops, talking people through how we can, not just from an individual place, but collectively do this change. And at the end of the day, it is, I think, making the world a better place for everyone.
Yeah.
That
sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I didn't even know that's where we were going to go. So that's fun.
And if art is part of it, that's great. And if it comes in the form of music, wonderful. If it comes in the form of a fragrance, fantastic. I love any kind of expression. So I'm very open to that.
Yeah. No, well, and my friend Louisa, who is the founder and creative behind the La Eva products that we have here in the treatments, she always talks about her background as a clinical psychologist. And actually the reason we bonded is because we had this similar conversation where she'd always been the sort of very head-based, very intellectual, very academic. She did her postgraduate at Oxford. She was leading these big teams, but then realised a little bit like you that actually the boundaries of her work were starting to interfere with her being. And therefore she felt she had a need to create. She had a need to use her hands. And in the process of, and for her own therapy, making things, but then also drawing down her sort of skills to go the principles of synesthesia. So everything that you see and you smell and you touch and you taste and you hear has an impact on your soul, on your well-being. And how can you, if you are aware of that consciously, then the little adjustments or little moments of beauty or little moments of calm or ritual, as opposed to going, I'm going to save up and in 6 months' time I'm going to go and sit in Bali for 2 weeks. And then you go straight back to New York and you're doing exactly the same thing that you've been doing for the last 6 years, and then you have another burnout, and then it goes, we'll save up for 6 months and we'll go to Bali. It's like, the patterns here are not, they're not working. You need to bring things back slowly back into the everyday. But because it's about life and these moments of calm and joy and connection. And we've had lots of discussions about creating other events here at Casa Fuzetta. And Louisa is actually half Greek, and she says one of her best friends from Athens plays the harp. And as all could create this extraordinary sort of sound experience here and introduce the harp into the environment. And it's just, oh my God, amazing. But light and sound and people and laughter, just like all the things that.
It's the best. I love being in those spaces. Like it was yesterday, we went to one of the islands and I went into the ocean. I thought I wouldn't do that because it's February.
And it's cold.
But the sun was shining.
Yes. And it was a beautiful day.
It was gorgeous, so gorgeous. And I had met this wonderful person here during the retreat, and I had only known her for 5 days at this point. But we went into the water. It's because of her that I even went inside. And it was so cold, and we were just shrieking and like just come out of our bodies. Just we couldn't control it because it was such a physical experience. And about 5 minutes later, we're just swimming around like little seals, just so happy. And we didn't, of course, even have words to describe this. We just kept smiling at each other, and we would keep saying the same thing. Oh, it's so beautiful. I'm so grateful. It's so beautiful. I'm so grateful. And I think that is one of the joys of being alive and being also a human, I think, is just sharing in that beauty, just sharing in that experience, I think is so beautiful.
Yeah. No, yesterday was a very special day. It was gorgeous, and yeah, you just can't believe that it was like whatever it was, 17th of February, and it's just stunning and not a cloud in the sky, and just perfect, beautiful day. Yeah, thank you. And bringing us back into Lisbon, do you have any top tips to share with people, or will you keep them private and say, no, come to my workshop, come have fun with me, and then I'll share with you my little secrets?
I will tell all the secrets. Favorite places. I think favorite places are the Miradouros, the beautiful lookouts.
Yes.
I love going up there both in the morning, afternoon, evening. It's so nice to see perspective where you can really look out into the city and the ocean. And it's such a special, even concept, I think, this lookout, and how there's so many of them throughout Lisbon. Yeah. And I also really love the libraries, the old libraries. I often go to them to work on manuscripts specifically. And it is as if time just does not even exist.
Yeah.
There's this very slow tick-tock of an old clock, the wood furnishing.
You can feel and smell the history. Yeah.
So I think, those are my favorite places, really.
You've been super generous in your time and you're sharing your story.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
I particularly enjoyed the solo episode that you did with Haruka. Interesting how the two of you had such parallel starts in Portugal. Yours being that Johnny was very attracted to the house and brought you to Portugal for the first time. Much the same that Haruka's interest in Portugal was sparked by her husband, who first had the desire to come to the country. And that journey for them was the transition for her, going from a very structured, practical Haruka to really embracing the full artistic, passionate part of her, seeking in everyday life and existence, slowing down the beauty in everyday things, which was something she commented on in relation to you as well. So I felt like there were a lot of parallels, a lot of common ground, and a lot of shared feelings in terms of Portugal, Casa Fuzetta, and the house, which I really enjoyed listening to in this episode.
And Kate, you were in Japan earlier this year. We were chatting offline. You picked up on the fact that actually there were some real points of similarity and detail, and you could really identify Haruka's heritage and how that overlaps with what your experience was in Japan.
Absolutely, and thank you, because it totally blew my mind, actually. I thought the focus on detail, design, and the fusion of those parts of our lives with the practical kind of elevated everyday living, and that there's beauty in everything you see, from nature to man-made structure to how we breathe. And it really it struck me about Japan in such a kind of extraordinary way.
And something where if we applied a little more care and consciousness to what we do, as opposed to just seeing the world around us as a resource that we can pick up and use and abuse and let go and is disposable. Because you were talking about how in Japan there is almost no disposable sort of culture. Everything is really considered.
Yes, it's interesting because everything from the presentation on a plate to how flowers are arranged or gardens, there's every element of everything seemed to be thought through. There is waste, that in itself can feel disposable, but there's an interesting kind of contradiction in some ways. But I think traditionally and in modern terms, there's a word for it in Japanese, and I wish I could remember it, but it is literally the beauty in every day, the beauty in all elements.
And as somebody who's been following Haruka, her art and what she does, I'd encourage people to see her work, because obviously, talking about it's one thing, but seeing it's a completely different one. And in the show notes, I've included link to her website and Instagram, but you can also subscribe to her Substack. And I can tell you, her newsletters, again, are just filled with beautiful details, stories, and her observation of daily moments, or those moments in our daily lives where actually, if we just slow down, we could appreciate. Also, in the show notes, you can find links to our February workations and to the full schedule of yoga, meditation, leadership, coaching, and writing retreats that we've got scheduled across the year. Whilst this is the last in our first series, with your support, we hope to return with a second series. And we're not short of ideas, but of course, we would love your input. We have a wealth of wonderful people to introduce you to. Some of our initial ideas include meeting Menke Fleshman, who is one of my very favorite local people. She's a Dutch artist who came to Portugal with her parents, not her husband this time, and she came to Portugal actually supposedly on their way to Canada when she was about 7 years old, and she never left. And she is part of a growing and blossoming community of artists in and around the Eastern Algarve. If we get the numbers up, so down to you guys, we might organise a live guided meditation and sound bath, which we hosted a couple of times during COVID. And it was extraordinary. I mean, I think at a push, we can probably get 15 people physically into the meditation room for lying down for a sound bath. And in some of the live Instagram feeds that we did, I think we had 300 people at one point, and the energy is just really quite something.
Yeah.
And I would love to introduce you to Philippe, who's the owner of an amazing vineyard called Morgado do Quintão, which is in the Western Algarve. And regular visitors to the house will know of Morgado because all our favorite wines come from his vineyard. And occasionally we also make trips to go and have farmers' tables, lunches or dinners,
which is gorgeous,
under the branches of their 2,000-year-old olive tree. And Philippe's got plenty of stories. And of course, regular visitors will also know that we've got a link to a beautiful organic skincare brand called La Eva. And Louisa and I have been working on this brand for, I think it's 8 years now, pretty much the same period of time as Casa Fuzetta. But Louisa is quite an exceptional, not only psychologist, but also creative, and is actually pretty well recognized now in the field for as being a nose. But I would say that what we'd love her to come and talk about is the psychology of scent and synesthesia and the interplay of these everyday moments at our sides and the interplay with art. So plenty. We haven't got. We've
got lots to talk about.
We've got lots to talk about.
And lots of people to talk to.
Exactly, and to introduce you to. So on that note, we will leave you, and of course, love you to share with us your ideas on what you'd like to deep dive into a little more, or people you would like us to introduce for the second series. Até a próxima.
Até a próxima.